Battlefield 6 drops tomorrow, and we were granted early access to do some benchmarking. So of course, I took full advantage of that opportunity, testing 43 different graphics cards at 3 resolutions.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Here are the biggest gaming leaks and news you've probably missed this week.
A warrior like you would be a great asset to our cause.
What do you need?
Recruits, liberated slaves. The warriors among them join me. The others grow the community for which we fight. Best begin soon. There's much to do.
So, this is wild. Reports are saying Ubisoft actually canceled an Assassin's Creed game set during the American Civil War and the Reconstruction era. Yeah, a post-Civil War Assassin's Creed gone. According to GameFile's Stephen Totolo, this project would have followed a formerly enslaved black man trying to rebuild his life after the war. At some point, he would have crossed paths with the assassins and taken on the Ku Klux Klan. The devs working on it were passionate. They believed it could have been something powerful. A story about how racism and politics were used to divide and control people. But Ubisoft shut it down. The reason? Politics. Sources say the company got nervous after the backlash surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows. You know, the one with the black samurai protagonist. They didn't want another social media storm, so instead of pushing forward with one of the boldest settings in franchise history, they pulled the plug, and man, that's disappointing. Because this could have been something special. The Civil War and Reconstruction era is one of the most important periods in human rights history. It's filled with real conflict, real tension, and real stories worth telling. If anything, it's the perfect time period for an Assassin's Creed game. Ubisoft's worried about politics, but here's the thing. Assassin's Creed has always been political. Assassin's Creed 3 literally took place during the American Revolution. Liberation had a black woman as the lead character and tackled themes of slavery and freedom. So it's not like they haven't gone there before. They just used to do it with a little courage. The idea of a game where a freed man joins the Brotherhood and fights the KKK, that's not too political. That's historical truth. It's part of what America was. And pretending that it's too controversial to explore now in 2025 says a lot about the times we're living in. Because right now, we're in this weird moment where even history is being rewritten. Museums are under review for being too divisive. Funding is being threatened for showing uncomfortable truths about slavery and race. And Ubisoft looked at all that and thought, yeah, maybe now's not the time, but maybe now is the time. We need games that have something to say, games that take risks. Because if every big publisher keeps running scared of backlash, then we're never going to get meaningful stories again. Still, I get it. Ubisoft's not exactly known for subtle storytelling. And trying to tackle something like Reconstruction without oversimplifying it would have been tough. But that doesn't mean you don't try. That's how you grow. That's how this medium matures. The sad part is, when the news of this cancellation hit Reddit, the moderators had to shut down the comments within 24 hours. That alone shows you how divided people are right now. We can't even talk about this without chaos breaking out online. And that's the real tragedy.
You know, Edward, I've witnessed my kin suffer for so long. It is easy to forget the concept of freedom.
So Battlefield 6 just dropped, and it's already blowing up. Like, not metaphorically, I mean, the servers are literally melting under the weight of 500,000 players. SteamDB shows Battlefield 6 has already hit over 606,000 concurrent players on Steam alone. That's not just impressive, that's historic. To give you perspective, Battlefield 5 peaked at around 116,000 players. Battlefield 2042 barely cracked 107,000. 1,000. Battlefield 6 has quadrupled both those numbers in a single afternoon. And get this, EA's biggest all-time record on Steam comes from Apex Legends, sitting at around 624,000. Battlefield 6 is already nipping at its heels and could pass it within the hour, and we haven't even hit the weekend rush yet. Now, here's the funny part. Not everyone in that number is actually playing. A ton of players are stuck in queues over 500,000 deep, and that's not an exaggeration. Some are still unpacking the install files, while others are waiting to connect. But even then, people are saying the queue's moving fast. So at least EA learned something from the Battlefield 2042 launch disaster. And for once, the hype feels real. Players are sharing clips, servers are packed, and even with all the chaos, Battlefield 6 feels alive. You can tell there's a real hunger for that large-scale boots-on-the-ground experience again. Early reviews and community feedback are calling Battlefield 6 a massive step up from 2042. Like night and day, the return to grounded modern combat has hit home. People are saying it feels like classic Battlefield again, not a chaotic experiment or a futuristic tech demo. Just boots on the ground, destruction everywhere, and that signature Battlefield moment energy that's been missing for years. The first thing players are praising is the gunplay. It's tighter, heavier, and more responsive. The recoil feels earned, the sound design hits hard, and every weapon feels distinct. Explosions are insane. You can feel the chaos, but it's controlled chaos this time. The map design is another highlight. Reviewers and fans are saying DICE finally nailed the scale-to-detail balance. Big enough for all-out warfare, but detailed enough that infantry fights don't feel empty. You've got environmental destruction returning in full force. Buildings collapsing, craters forming, cover disintegrating. And let's talk visuals.
Battlefield 6 drops tomorrow, and we were granted early access to do some benchmarking. So of course, I took full advantage of that opportunity, testing 43 different graphics cards at 3 resolutions using 2 quality presets.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Unreal. This thing is running beautifully on high-end PCs, and even consoles are holding their own. Lighting, reflections, atmospheric effects. It looks cinematic when the smoke clears and jets fly over your head. Now, it's not all perfect. Let's be real. Launch day was chaos. Long queues, unpacking delays, and random disconnects have been the biggest complaints so far. But compared to Battlefield 2042's launch disaster, this feels manageable. The servers are stabilizing fast, and people who are actually in-game are mostly having a smooth experience. There's also a small crowd pointing out balance issues. Some vehicles feel overpowered, certain weapons melt too fast, and the squad system still needs tweaks. But those are the kind of fixes that DICE can patch within weeks, not fundamental design problems like 2042 had. Across Reddit, YouTube, and X, you can feel the energy shift. The Battlefield fan base, which has been burned so many times before, is cautiously optimistic. There's excitement, there's relief, and most importantly, there's fun. Players are saying things like, "It finally feels like Battlefield again." You've got entire threads filled with clips of players parachuting onto tanks, dropping C4 from drones, or crashing jets straight into objectives. That chaotic, cinematic energy that only Battlefield can pull off. Ghost of Yōtei is officially Sony's strongest PS5 launch since Spider-Man 2. After just a week on the market, it's already one of PlayStation's biggest first-party wins of the generation. That says a lot about how strong the Ghost series has become for Sony. The game has sold over 1.6 million copies to players, or around 2 million if you count retailer shipments. That's almost $100 million in revenue. It's a little slower than Ghost of Tsushima, which hit 2.4 million in 3 days. But here's the catch. Tsushima launched when the PS4 had a 110 million install base. The PS5 sits at around 80 million right now. Plus, Tsushima dropped during the lockdown era when everyone was gaming like crazy. So yeah, Ghost of Yōtei is doing great. It even made back its development costs on day 2. That's rare these days for a massive AAA release. I've been diving deep into the game myself, and man, the refinement is unreal. Sucker Punch trimmed away the open world fluff from the first game and doubled down on what actually matters: the combat, the atmosphere, and the presentation. Atsu's revenge story, driven by Erika Ishii's performance, hits harder than Jin Sakai's slow burn arc from the first game. game. It feels sharper, more personal, and visually, it's jaw-dropping. Yōtei might be the most beautiful thing I've seen on PS5. Add those lightning-fast load times, and it's another reminder that Sony still leads the industry in technical polish. Players are obsessed too. Around 30% have already clocked over 20 hours in their first week. The overlap numbers tell the story. 93% of Yōtei players also played Ghost of Tsushima. 30% also played Sekiro. 27% Assassin's Creed Shadows. And the crossover with other PlayStation hits like Spider-Man 2, Helldivers 2, and Death Stranding 2 shows this is hitting that core PlayStation fan base perfectly. Digital sales made up 77% of total sales so far, matching Sony's recent trends. Physical copies keep dropping year over year, and the PS5 era is pushing that shift faster than ever. Compared to other recent PS5 releases, like Astro Bot or Death Stranding 2, Yōtei is miles ahead. It's even outselling Assassin's Creed Shadows by about 1.5 times. The so-called Samurai Showdown of 2025? Yeah, PlayStation just won that. And here's where things get interesting. Sucker Punch's CEO Brian Fleming said the development budget was about the same as Ghost of Tsushima, which leaks suggest was around $60 million. That's tiny by today's standards. The game earned that back a day after launch. Sucker Punch runs a lean team, around 150 to 160 core devs with some outsourcing. Combine that with PlayStation's marketing power, and you've got one of the most efficient, high-budget games out there. Looking ahead, 2026 is going to give Yōtei a second wind. The free co-op mode, Yōtei Legends, drops next year, and it's probably going to explode just like Helldivers 2 did. And if that rumored Steam port hits in 2026 too, expect another wave of sales. Tsushima's PC release pulled 2 million sales and nearly 90 million in revenue. You can bet Sony wants that again.
For those who prove worthy, paradise awaits.
So, the Uncharted 5 rumors are heating up again, and this time, it sounds a lot more real than before. Here's what's going on. Multiple insiders are saying that PlayStation has not one, but two Uncharted-related projects in development right now. One of them might be a reboot, and the other could be a remake of the earlier games. The most interesting clue came straight from Sony's own marketing. Remember that PlayStation trailer that dropped a while back? The one that showed a young woman lighting a torch in a cave? Fans went crazy over that clip because it looked a lot like an Uncharted teaser. And get this, many believe that woman is Cassie Drake, Nathan Drake's daughter from Uncharted 4. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Naughty Dog has already confirmed that they're working on a second major project besides The Last of Us. And the lead of that project, they worked on Uncharted, Lost Legacy, which was basically a soft reboot itself. So that instantly set off alarms in the community. According to reports, that second project has been in development for over 3 years. That's enough time for early concept work, world design, motion capture, and maybe even a working demo by now. Now, it's possible this second project is tied to The Last of Us, sure. But if you look at the timeline, the staff movements, and the tone of the leaks, it really does sound like something Uncharted related is brewing. A lot of people are also pointing out that Naughty Dog has been quietly handing off some legacy IPs to other PlayStation studios. So, if Uncharted 5 or an Uncharted reboot is real, it might not even be led by Naughty Dog themselves, just supervised by them. Think of how Sony handled the Spider-Man IP with Insomniac, that kind of setup. So, the situation over at Build a Rocket Boy has blown up. Former developers who worked on Mind's Eye are coming forward, and what they're describing sounds brutal. They say the final months of development were a nightmare of crunch, burnout, and broken promises. A letter from the IWGB game Workers' Union dropped this week, signed by over 90 current and former employees. In it, they accused the studio's leadership, including founder Leslie Benzies, of running the project into the ground. They claim the crunch became unbearable, with mandatory overtime that lasted for months. Every developer had to work an extra 8 hours a week, and even though the company promised time off in return, most people never got to take it. The devs say they were overworked, direction kept changing, and communication communication from the top was a mess. One week, priorities would shift completely. Another week, teams were told to redo finished work because someone higher up changed their mind again. That's the kind of chaos that kills morale. And when Mind's Eye finally launched, everything collapsed. The game was buggy, unoptimized, and a lot of players refunded it. Within weeks, the studio laid off hundreds of people, and that's when more stories started surfacing. Some employees say they were let go with incorrect notice periods. Others claim their dismissal wasn't even handled legally. The union says dozens might have been wrongfully terminated. To make things worse, some studio executives allegedly tried to downplay the backlash. They suggested there was some coordinated attack against the game. But when you have this many people, developers, artists, QA, all saying the same thing, it's not a conspiracy, it's a pattern. So yeah, Mind's Eye's failure wasn't just about poor gameplay or bugs. It was about how the people making it were treated. The ones who crunched, the ones who burned out, and the ones who got tossed aside after the launch. Now, the union's getting involved. Legal action is being discussed, and the studio's reputation, especially under Benzies' leadership, is taking serious damage. So, let's talk about the Switch 2. Yeah, it sold 2.4 million units in the US over 3 months. Sounds decent, right? Until you actually look closer. It's only 5% ahead of what the PS4 did in its first 3 months, and that was way back in 2013. And it's about 77% ahead of the original Switch when sales are time-aligned, but that's not really the flex people think it is. The market's completely different now. Because here's the thing, I've seen single games sell more in a weekend than Switch 2 has in 3 months. That's the reality. The hype at launch? Totally expected. But I'm calling it now. That momentum's gonna drop hard. And it's not because Nintendo lost their magic. It's because they lost touch with value. $450 for the console, $80 for Mario Kart. And you're still playing what looks like PS4-era graphics on third-party games. That's wild. You just paid $500,000 for a system that makes you pay again for 1080p and 60 frames on Zelda. Like, I just bought your console. Why am I paying to unlock basic performance? It's like upgrading from an RTX 3060 to a 5070 Ti, and then being told, hey, if you want higher frame rates, you gotta buy that separately, per game. That's how insane this feels. And yeah, sure, Switch 1 was the handheld king, but that was back when there wasn't much competition. Now, it's 2025. We've got over 50 handheld gaming options: Steam Deck, ROG Ally X, Legion Go, MSI Claw, you name it. And the Switch 2 somehow manages to look like the weakest of the bunch. People bought it day one out of nostalgia. I get that. Impulse buy, right? But after tax, you're paying close to $500. And you're expected to pay again just to get higher frame rates and 1080p upgrades for your older games. Nintendo practically begged people not to buy it with those prices. If they launched it at $350, bundled Mario Kart in, and offered free upgrades for the Switch games you already owned, it would have been a different story. We'd be looking at 15 million sales by now, easy. And look, this isn't some console war rant. I'm not waving a Sony or Xbox flag. I'll buy anything that's worth the money. But Switch 2, it's not it. Not for $450. Not when other handhelds are pushing 1440p, 60 FPS with way more power and freedom. So yeah, 2.4 million sales might look fine on paper, but in 2025, that's bad, really bad. Comparing it to PS4 launch numbers, that's depressing. We're almost at the PS6 era, and you're telling me Switch 2's biggest brag is matching a 12-year-old console? If that's not a sign to stay away from this thing, I don't know what is. But hey, it's your money. Buy whatever makes you happy. Just don't say nobody warned you.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that.